Have a seat. You can have a seat. You can have a seat here. I think Gordon's mic's not on. So just look at this. I have a 2.5-page introduction here, but I'm just thinking, I don't need it. Ladies and gentlemen, Gordon Lightfoot. I'm Heather Reisman, generally known as your chief book lover, but also to those of you who know me, your chief music lover. It's an unbelievable pleasure to welcome Gordon here tonight. Gordon, we're going to do our normal routine, which is I get to ask you a couple of questions. You can answer the ones you feel like answering. We hope you'll answer all of them. And then we're going to let the audience ask a few questions. And then, I know you said no, but we have a guitar handy. But we'll get to that. Have a seat. So, it's fantastic to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
How you feeling?
Good.
Can we check Gordon's mic? Gordon's mic is not on.
Just close it.
Hold it. You have to hold it a little bit closer to your...
No. Check. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Wait. We think
I was going to bring the guitar. You know, I was going to do that. If I had thought I was really going to perform, I would have brought my own equipment down here, Heather. Honestly, I'm sorry. I have to decline, but I'll talk. I'll answer any questions that you
All right, well, we'll start with the questions. I'll get back to that after.
Nobody ever hears me say anything anyway, so this is like... Let's do it.
So first of all, we're glad to hear that you're in fantastic health now, because you went through a couple of years when you were sort of battling it a bit. So you're feeling great?
Yes, I'm fine now. What happened to me was I had a case of mechanical failure. What I had, folks, was like the hose in an automobile engine. It leads from the radiator to the engine, and the hose broke.
Not good.
No, it's not good. So it had me out for 2.5 years.
Too much hard living?
2.5 years. I was to get better.
Right. Too much hard.
It's a burst artery. Really, I had a burst artery, and right in here.
All right. Well, so what I was asking you is, was that just a question of a few more decades or too much hard living?
No, it was those things grow over time. You can have an aneurysm of that type for years, and you can have some discomfort from it from time to time, but until they pop. Right. Until they pop, there's no problem.
There's no problem. But you're feeling in great shape. What do you do every day to stay in great form?
Well, for years and years, and particularly now, I go to the gym every day.
You do? And what do you do when you're there?
I do a program. I've been doing it since 1982, and it's a program that allows me to build up adrenaline and it's weights and stretches and fast walk. Really, is all it is. I've been doing it for 30 years, so it's not like it's anything unusual about it.
Looks pretty great, doesn't he? Wow, really rocks. He rocks. So tell me, how many songs have you written over the course of your songwriting career?
About 300.
300.
Yeah.
So I read somewhere that now you've stopped writing. You'll perform, but you're not writing songs anymore. So why? Why stop writing?
Well, I haven't stopped writing.
Oh, you haven't?
I'm still writing in my mind. I'm still writing in my mind.
So is that thing that I read not actually true? You're still writing songs. I mean, will they come from your mind to the...
No, they won't. There's not enough time left. It's an isolating thing of songwriting. I was under contract for 33 years to make records, and when I finished my last album for my last obligation that was done under contract, I had done 19 albums by that time.
And you were done?
And yeah, I wrote one more.
Did you record it?
I wrote one more. No, it came out in 2004. I finished that one while I was. I started working on that one, finishing it while I was still in the hospital after my first round of operations took place.
But you didn't record it, or you recorded that song? Oh, Harmony, right, okay.
It's an album.
It's
a Harmony album.
Right, no, the album, yes, the album just came out. The album just came out, but I was wondering about that very last song. That was Harmony?
Huh?
The last song you wrote?
The very last song I wrote?
Right.
On that album, probably was
Harmony.
Coochie Chain.
Okay.
Coochie-Chain.
Phenomenal. What was, Gordon, we're so familiar, your music is so indelibly imprinted on our mind. What was the first hit? What was the first song that broke out for you?
When I was a very young man, I was 22 years old and I was working for a company called Chateau Records. And we went to Nashville and made some records down there because Bobby Curtola had done that. Bobby, I ran into him down in the lobby of the Sheraton Center about 6 months ago. I did. He's got a business going, Bobby Curtola. Yeah, he's doing fine. He had 2 or 3 of his associates there with him. I don't know who the heck they were, but they had something going on anyway, I'm sure. Actually, he was singing at a golf tournament. Bobby Curtola.
Right.
So I went and did the same thing, and I tell you, by golly, it worked. I had a good song. It was called Remember Me, I'm the One. And it's the very first song of my anthology, which also is on the same label as I'm with now, Rhino.
Right.
And in it, I sounded like a cross between Pat Boone and Jim Reeves. It made it up to, right up to number 1 on the Chum chart. And it was a huge
That was the first hit.
In Canada, and I didn't even have a show. I didn't even not even have a show.
So after that, you were off and running, or did you have, the proverbial 5, 7, 9, 15, no, not that long, but how many years?
7 or 9 years, 7 or 9 years later.
Right. So those early years.
Yeah, but 1971, yes, I had done 5 albums for a good company down in the USA, United Artists.
Right.
I had an excellent manager because I was a songwriter also, and they were placing my material with various people such as Barbra Streisand and Elvis Presley, and I thought that was okay.
What did Elvis sing of yours?
He did a wonderful version of If You Could Read My Mind, Early Morning Rain. Just really, I was so pleased. But there were so many great versions of it that it's hard to narrow Elvis down that way and say he was the best because, to be quite honest with you, Heather, I've never heard a cover recording I didn't like.
Well, I was just going to ask who else covered you that you felt passionate about, that you felt you liked them all, but who so interpreted the music that it moved you?
Well, there was there were so many. I mean, I would like to have a list here of people that I could pick them out of. Like when people ask me who my influences are, I usually produce a list. I have to. I think that Peter, Paul, and Mary did wonderful stuff, and the Kingston Trio, and Marty Robbins, and George Hamilton IV, and Johnny Cash, and Bob Dylan.
Wow, great, all musical greats.
There's more that are lesser known who impressed me even more. Billy Lee Riley, who you probably never heard of.
No,
Billy Lee Riley, an R&B artist who never really quite, jumped out, as they say.
Right. So those are the big people that covered the music and that were influenced by it and who you felt interpreted it the way you wanted to. I recently heard a story that Neil Diamond wrote songs for about 7 years, every day for about 7 years. took them to the Brill Building every day, never sold one, because he was trying to read. And so it's 7 years Neil Diamond wrote songs, and then finally took off on his own to create his own sound. That's why I was interested in, how long before you felt that the public got your music? How long were you singing before you thought it was part of the mainstream?
Well,
Writing and singing.
In 1971, I was down sitting in my manager's office down at 75 East 55th Street in New York. I really got lucky with Peter, Paul, and Mary,
Yeah.
and with Ian and Sylvia prior to that. Ian and Sylvia were the first ever to
The Canadian connection.
He said, I want you to meet somebody, and he introduced me to the president of Warner Brothers, and I said, oh, music. And Reprise. I said, oh, yeah, sure, I'd like to. So they said, when he came in, he liked me. It was Mo Austin came in, Mr. Austin, and he met me, and the next week, Albert, my manager's name was Albert Grossman, called me and said they like you, and particularly they like the fact that you made an album a year for the last 5 years, because these guys, you sign with these guys, they want records.
Right. They want someone who can actually produce, who can turn it out.
And keep it up. And of course I didn't want to sign, and I was being Canadian, and I was shy and all that kind of stuff. And finally, after about 3 months, I said, okay,
You do it.
let's do it. So on the very first album, we stiffed it. You got to understand. I got accepted by the industry over in the United States by about 1964, and I'm always squinting talking about it, because they say, what's he doing working down in the States? What's he doing that? And
Did you feel that was a sellout?
yeah, he's going to the States. Is he going to move? He wants, but you have to do that.
It would be interesting to hear your perspective. Who are you waving at?
Well, it's one of my fellow gym members. He's
Oh,
a gym rat like I am, and his wife's a gym rat too. She goes to the gym also, and that's what they likes to do.
Let me take you back to the comment you just made about your unease about saying you went down to the States, because...
Well, I feel like I'm boasting about it. I feel like I'm boasting, and it's that small bit. But when Peter, Paul, and Mary recorded my song, I was strolling around in my basement apartment here up at 413 Arlington Avenue off Vaughan Road with my wife and my brand new baby one day, and there was Peter, Paul, and Mary on the radio singing
Your song.
For Loving Me.
Was that an amazing feeling?
And the next thing you know, I was invited to sign a management contract. And so it was all through the songwriting, you see, that all this, it was through that very first song. Up until that time, I'd written maybe 40 or 50 songs, and just about all of them are been destroyed or in the wastebasket.
And then suddenly you're on the radio.
And yeah, I'm on the, all of a sudden there's Peter, Paul, and Mary with this wonderful rendition, and it sounded really, really good. And the next thing I knew, I was getting a call. I was getting a call from somebody in New York.
Right.
And I didn't know. The next thing you know, I'm signed. I'm under contract. It's been that way ever since 1965. Although I stepped out of that contract after 7 years because the contract had expired. At that point on, I got Alexander Mayer to run my business for about 4 or 5 years, and then after that, my sister ran the business for 10 years. And then Barry Harvey ran the business for about 18 years, along with the help of Ms. Ann Lebo, my assistant over here on our left side, Ann Lebo.